After 4 days of extensive testing with my very own 128GB Quest 3 headset, I'm now finally allowed to share gameplay, captures from inside the headset, and review-style thoughts about Meta's new VR and MR hybrid hotness. Now, whilst I truly believe that 4 days isn't enough time to fully review a device like this, I have tried my best to zero in on everything that makes this headset great, all the things that make it worth your hard-earned money, and of course, the things that might make you hesitate when thinking about picking this up over, or as an upgrade to, the Quest 2. For this video, I have compiled the 10 most important aspects of the Quest 3, the 10 things that stood out to me the most while spending my time with the headset over these last 4 days. 10 things ranging from the good to the bad to the downright incredible. This is the Quest 3. This is Passthrough on Quest 3, and I hope you'll all agree it's the best we've ever seen on a standalone device. It dominates the murky black and white visual of the Quest 2 and even comes in a considerable cut above the feature on Quest Pro. For the first time, I can actually read text through Passthrough. I can check my phone or watch. I can even type competently on a keyboard with minimal mistakes and browse the web on my PC. You can easily grab a drink or snack without fumbling around and feeling unsure that the depth and perspective you're being shown are correct. I could even play other consoles and games through the pass-through and clearly see what I was doing. Now, I'm not saying you'd want to do this. The pass-through certainly isn't perfect after all. The visual still has some warping and definitely works best in environments with plenty of natural light. But playing my Switch or enjoying some Spider-Man on PS5 was something I never would have been able to do on previous Quest headsets via pass-through, and it works great as a demonstration for just how clear and sharp it is on Quest 3. This new pass-through is a standout feature of the Quest 3 and an essential part of what makes this new headset so impressive, because without it the real star of the show wouldn't work even half as well. It's also worth pointing out that you can now capture pass-through content easily without doing anything else outside of the headset. With the touch of a button you can start recording your surroundings and any mixed reality experience you might want to share with an audience. If you told me 6 months ago that I'd be saying the mixed reality element of the Quest 3 is easily its best feature and biggest selling point, I'd probably call you a liar and a fool. But here I am telling you that the mixed reality element of the Quest 3 is easily its best feature and biggest selling point, at least for me. Setting up a room for mixed reality is mind-blowingly simple. The Quest 3 does all the legwork as you move around the room, allowing the headset to map out the walls, floor, ceiling, and any furniture or items within the space. Once you've scanned everything, which only takes a minute or so depending on the size of your room, you can manually add pieces of furniture, doors, windows, and artwork. And this is where the real magic happens. The more information you can give the Quest about the items in your room, the better your mixed reality experience will be. Take Demio, for example, a game that fully embraces the medium and is probably my current favourite experience in MR. Demio will look for any tables you've outlined and place items on them. Items like stacks of candles or gaming related stickers stuck to the surfaces. It will place artwork on your walls and hang items from your ceiling, but the fun doesn't end there. Any tables are also registered as hard surfaces, so you can roll your dice on any of them in game, and the dice will even roll off onto the floor if it reaches the edge. It's these features of scanning and saving every aspect of a room that really elevates MR on the Quest 3 to a level I didn't expect. I've played around 15 MR experiences so far, and each have been incredible in their own way, whilst utilising the data made available to them with varying degrees of success. Bringing meaningful gaming experiences into your home environments has been the biggest wow moment of the Quest 3 so far. Each new MR game I play leaves me grinning from ear to ear, and the sharp, crisp, vibrant visuals of the VR elements alongside the full colour pass-through is a sight that has to be seen to be believed. If you want better quality VR experiences, you'll definitely find that with the Quest 3, but make no mistake, this thing was built to sell you on the idea of MR, and I for one have been won over. When it comes to standalone VR experiences, those that have received Quest 3 specific updates look absolutely phenomenal, and it's clear that moving into the future we're going to see some very nice looking games built for this specific hardware. Across all the upgraded games I've gone hands-on with, the biggest differences seem to be the lighting, the texture quality, and the sheer number of details populating the environments. Items and players actually have shadows, smoke effects roll across battlefields, grass is a 3D element instead of the colour green simply painted on the floor, reflections in water and puddles shimmer when light hits them in the right way. The list goes on. These upgraded games now have multiple light sources in their environments, light sources that flicker and create immersive reflections and shadows. The whole experience feels elevated, and simple things like dynamic shadows in Red Matter 2 push the game towards its PC counterpart in ways I never thought would be possible on a piece of standalone hardware. Other games are a little more subtle, but the differences can still be seen. Dungeons of Eternity looks sharper, enemies are less blurry, and again, the lighting feels more vibrant and alive. Everything here benefits massively from the resolution increase, and the game even feels like it might be running a little smoother. However, that could just be a placebo. All of these elements paired with the new higher field of view really sells you on just how good games can look on this hardware. They're more immersive, and some are getting scary close to PC VR quality, but it will all depend on the developer. This isn't a catch-all upgrade that means everything will now look better. These results take work, and there's no guarantee that every game will get the treatment that these titles have. If a developer opts to upgrade their game for Quest 3, then you can be confident knowing that the experience will be impressive. Every upgraded game I've played so far has been a noticeable improvement over the Quest 2 counterpart, and they truly feel like they justify the upgrade from that hardware. If the trend continues and we see games built for Quest 3 and scaled down for Quest 2, then for anyone who wants their standalone experience to be the very best it can be, should opt in for the Quest 3. It's a big enough difference in my opinion, and one that I hope will start to change the opinion of standalone VR quality in general. It's also worth pointing out for any content creators out there, I haven't experienced any impacts in performance whilst recording on the Quest 3. In the past, some of the more impressive looking Quest 2 games have been tough to capture, but here recording seems to make little to no difference to the performance and experience of playing a game. At least that's been the case with everything I've recorded so far. Now, that all being said, I do have to let you know that you shouldn't expect miracles when it comes to games that haven't received Quest 3 enhancements or upgrades. Your entire Quest 2 library isn't going to look like a bunch of brand new games that are going to blow your mind all over again on Quest 3. I've played a decent handful of non-upgraded games, and for me personally, any visual or quality improvement has been minimal to say the least. The Quest 3 has a display resolution of around 30% more than Quest 2, so even games not upgraded for the new hardware should look sharper. But for me so far, I've struggled to see any real meaningful difference. The field of view increase is the most welcome change for all games across the board. The experience is immediately more immersive, and games like Resident Evil 4 VR or In Death Unchained benefit from it massively. They look great, and I'm sure if I bounced back and forth between Quest 3 and Quest 2, I could potentially discern the difference in resolution and sharpness, but it really is going to be something that most average consumers won't necessarily notice. The field of view bump is immediately noticeable, but any kind of performance and resolution increase, at least for me, hasn't been big enough to impress me thus far. So let's hope more and more titles receive official upgrades that take advantage of this far more powerful hardware. One thing that I've seen a few people asking repeatedly online is whether or not the controller tracking is any better or worse than the Quest 2. It's a valid question given the fact that the Quest 3 touch controllers have done away with the tracking ring and don't have the cameras for tracking like the Quest Pro controllers. It's actually a concern I had before going hands-on with the Quest 3 myself. I'm happy to report, however, that the controllers track almost perfectly. I've experienced no issues whatsoever during around 40 hours of play and testing. The Quest 3 touch controllers track accurately in natural light, indoor lighting and low light situations, equally as well as their Quest 2 counterparts, and you'll only lose tracking when controllers sit behind your back or go under a surface like a table. I say almost perfectly because frankly there could be issues that I haven't encountered yet, but right now it shouldn't be a concern for anyone thinking about upgrading to this new headset. The controller tracking is solid and has caused me no problems thus far. The same cannot be said for hand tracking, however, a feature that for me personally still feels experimental and more often than not ends in mixed results that can become frustrating. One of the best MR experiences for Quest 3 at launch is piano vision, an experience that Meta highlighted in great detail in one of the more recent Quest 3 commercials. It's an application that gives users the opportunity to learn to play piano without even owning a piano. Any table or hard surface can become a playable set of keys, and the whole game runs using hand tracking. It's a beautiful concept and an app that has some seriously killer features, my favourite being the ability to overlay the mixed reality game on top of a real keyboard or piano, meaning you can learn and play songs in real time on an actual instrument. However, if you don't have a piano and need to rely on the mixed reality keys to play the songs, the game can provide some frustrations due to hand tracking not quite being where it needs to be. With a lot of talk recently about Meta releasing a cheaper headset with no controllers, and various sources online speaking about how the future of VR and MR are devices that rely on hand tracking, I have to say we're just not there yet. Until the technology improves and gets to the point where it's far more accurate, great experiences like this will sadly end up with some element of frustration. Trust me, as a guy who played a lot of Guitar Hero with a lot of faulty plastic guitars, there's nothing more annoying than a rhythm game telling you that you didn't hit a note when you know for a fact you did, and that's a feeling that hand tracking has brought back here with piano vision. A few weeks ago, I went hands-on with a Quest 3 at an event specifically for content creators and press. During the event, each Quest was outfitted with the new Elite strap, and I commented in my video back then about just how comfortable it was. It felt sturdy, the centre of gravity was much better than Quest 2, and it felt like a massive improvement over the stock comfort of Meta's previous VR headset. Flash forward a few weeks. I've now been using the Quest 3 with the stock fabric strap for around 40 hours and can confirm the comfort with this setup is only marginally better than that of the Quest 2. The stock strap that these headsets come with is never a great option and certainly not one to stick with for long. The Quest 3 strap in particular is better than the Quest 2, but for me it has proved uncomfortable for longer play sessions. The fabric strap mixed with the facial interface has caused me a few headaches, similar to those I experienced when playing with the Quest Pro. It squeezes the front of my head in a way that causes tension, and after playing for an hour or so I have to hop off to let it cool down. Now these issues will no doubt be rectified by a new facial interface and a much better strap. That was the case with the Quest 2, so I didn't really expect any different here. But it's still a shame that these third-party accessories or additional purchases are necessary for anyone who wants to use these headsets seriously for long periods of time. Once the Quest 3 is outfitted with better accessories, it will be the most comfortable headset I own. I'm sure of that due to its form factor, build quality and better centre of gravity, but I can't help but be slightly annoyed that the stock gear isn't better than this given the price of the headset. One thing you'll notice when using your Quest 3 for the first time is the speed of this hardware. I had become so used to the Quest 2 dragging its heels in menus and taking ages to load from application to application that using the Quest 3 feels like a truly next generation experience at times. It's lightning fast when you're navigating through menus or changing settings. Menus actually open when you click the button to open them rather than a few seconds later, and going from home menu into the action of a game takes a fraction of the time it did on Quest 2. The UI itself is basically identical to that of the Quest 2, and that should come as no surprise, as it's basically the same software running on much more powerful hardware. Your menu screens, systems, and game library will all look the same as that on your Quest 2, and any games you've purchased on the old hardware will immediately be waiting for you on Quest 3. The act of actually engaging with this software is just much nicer, especially if you're coming from Quest 2, which has started to slow more and more with each new update to the firmware over the past few months. Loading between apps and navigating menus is a simple thing, but it's something the Quest 3 does beautifully to highlight its additional power. Okay, outside of the Passthrough, mixed reality experiences, and upgraded Quest 3 visuals for games that have had updates, the biggest star of the show, the best reason to grab a Quest 3, is for the PC VR experience, which is now absolutely phenomenal, especially via virtual desktop. PC VR on Quest 3 has been a game changer for me. I'm someone who has used Quest 2 as his daily driver since 2020. I've become so used to the way PC VR games look on Quest 2, and I've become comfortable with the limitations of that hardware. Moving over to Quest 3, with its pancake displays and much higher resolution, has been an almost religious experience that I very much doubt I'll be able to come back from. The Quest Quest 2 will never be used for PC VR again. Quest 3 with its high field of view and stunning resolution makes PC VR pop in impressive ways, and I hope these through the lenses captures for Half-Life Alyx really showcase how good it looks. Everything is sharper, colours more vibrant, the depth and scale of everything looks more accurate, and details spanning off into the distance are no longer blurry or fuzzy around the edges, and it all runs amazingly with Virtual Desktop. Now, Virtual Desktop is another application that has been updated to support Quest 3 to the fullest, and it's a no-brainer essential purchase for anyone wanting the best wireless PC VR experience with their Quest headset. I've played a handful of games so far on Quest 3, and each has looked more impressive and performed better than I could have hoped. For some reason, the PC VR aspect of Quest 3 never really crossed my mind. I had stupidly assumed it would just be like the Quest 2, but I'm so happy to be wrong. For £479.99, this is an exceptionally good option for high quality PC VR. It's just a shame it doesn't have a display port, because that would have truly taken things to another level. However, Quest 3 can still connect via a wired USB-C connection or a wireless connection via Airlink or Virtual Desktop. The experience will vary depending on your PC hardware and network environment, but this will be the way I play all PC VR titles going forward. There's just no going back to the Quest 2 now. My last point is an odd one, and quite possibly an isolated case, but I have to mention it nonetheless. I have the 128GB model of the Quest 3, and I've been using it constantly, testing multiple games and recording tons of footage direct to the headset. Now, in doing so, I've managed to nearly fill the headset 3 or 4 times, and each time I've reached the point of having around 30GB of free storage, the performance of the device has dropped dramatically. I've spoken to other creators and no one thus far has experienced this, so there's a chance it's isolated to my headset or a batch that need a firmware update or something similar, but I can't ignore the fact that every time my free space starts to run down, the Quest 3 noticeably drops frames, starts to judder, screen tearing rears its ugly head, and in some games I even experienced white static-like spots flickering all over the screen. I've been able to replicate this around 3 or 4 times, and I can only hope it's not a widespread issue. Keeping my storage as empty as possible is of course something I can do, but as games start to get bigger and I perhaps jump between 2 or 3 at any one time, it could become impossible to do, and I wouldn't want the performance impact. This is potentially an easy fix with an update, or perhaps my Quest 3 is just faulty. Either way, it's worth considering if you're torn between the 128GB and 512GB versions of the device. There's still so much to learn about the Quest 3, but at this early stage I'm happy to report it's a massively positive upgrade over the Quest 2 that brings exciting new ways to play games to the forefront, with mixed reality taking centre stage. The pass-through, visual fidelity, performance speed and PC VR capabilities are all stunning, and games which have received a specific update will have you believing in the potential of standalone VR. It's a device that justifies its price point time and time again, and one that will no doubt only get better with time as more developers harness its power for new VR experiences that truly push the boundaries of what standalone VR is capable of. Despite some issues with comfort, the quality of the stock accessories, hand tracking wobbles, and a fairly non-revolutionary upgrade for games that haven't been enhanced for Quest 3, I would still recommend this to everyone looking for the best-in-class standalone VR experience, or even those looking for a top-quality PC VR headset at an affordable price. One thing is certain after spending 4 days with the Quest 3. My Quest 2 won't be getting a look in ever again, as this new headset improves upon it in every way imaginable.